Arsenal have coasted to victory against Slavia Prague by 3-0 in the Champions League. What may on the surface look like it was a very relaxed and easy game, it was one which threw many challenges at Mikel Arteta. In today's video, we will be looking at the various different ways in which Mikel Arteta managed to find a way through the Slavia Prague man-to-man press. But before I do begin, if you are new here, please do hit the subscribe, and as always, please do hit the like. But let's get on with the video. So here we have it, the respective structures of both teams. Slavia Prague did a 3-5-2 out of possession. Arsenal obviously built with a back three, but we'll get on to how they found solutions to Slavia Prague's defensive structure, because they often went man to man and made it really difficult for us. I do apologize, this isn't the official team sheet for Slavia Prague. I am using the Czech Republic national team because I haven't got them on this team sheet tool that I use. So shout out to GLA for the team sheet tool, but they haven't quite got Slavia Prague on here. So that won't stop us to talk about how Arsenal found solutions to bypass it, because we did find it tricky in the first 10 to 15 minutes, but I found Mikel Arteta, able to find solutions quite quickly. For example, we'll talk about it straight away and I'll show you examples of it. William Saliba's role was very good. There was often times in which he would move over to this side of the pitch, and it would force the Slavia Prague centre forward, when they'd press in that 3-5-2, to follow him across. And obviously when you do that, it opens up avenues for Norgard to come in there, and then space for Ethan to move into. And I want to quickly talk about Ethan Waneri, because Mikel Arteta wasn't pleased with him, especially in the first half. And you'd often hear him say, Ethan, move, Ethan, move. And the reason for that is Arsenal were creating opportunities for Ethan to receive the ball, but he wasn't quite, up to speed with what we were doing. He wasn't recognizing, okay, let's go backwards. When William Saliba makes this movement into the pivot, and this space opens up and Norgard drops in there, that is now my cue as a midfielder to go into there. And unfortunately, Ethan wasn't recognizing that. He wasn't recognizing, oh, okay, this is now my opportunity to come in there and have this guy follow me in. But what was intriguing was whenever Ethan would receive the ball, is sort of how good he was when he had the ball, in terms of his intention was very good, in terms of he wanted to always receive and try and turn or try and play forward. Yes, it often didn't work, but the intention is there. And I've told Arsenal fans a lot this season, as I struggle to even get the ball here, really difficult. I've told Arsenal fans this season that intention is better than execution. Execution will come as the season progresses. I think Arsenal will improve in how they sort of execute things, but now intention of having a William Saliba roaming into the pivot to provide an overload is very good. And what was quite interesting, to be honest, was also how we sort of use Mikel Merino. And it is an alien that when you are pressed man to man, if you are the centre forward and you're occupying the middle centre half, if you drop in, he's not going to follow you. This guy is not going to follow you in. So that enabled us to create an even better overload in here, an almost box-like overload, where Gabriel Magalhaes had the option to play it in. As I try and get the ball, we'll leave the ball for now. He had the option to play it in to William Saliba in here. He had the option to also play it to Nkapie over here, or even Norgard. So we were creating space in there really nicely through the centre-forward movement of Mikel Merino, but also the movement of Saliba as a libero into the pivot. And there was times when Saliba would receive the ball in the pivot and he wouldn't really do great with it. He did struggle to turn and be able to use his body to create sort of space for himself. But as a trial game for it, and I called it the John Stones role on social media, as a trial game for it, I think he didn't do too bad. And we've often seen it. I think Brentford last season was an example of Saliba where he executed that role to an absolute T. But today was a bit difficult for him. It was just thrown onto him. He hadn't had practice. Mikel Arteta did say that. But it was also very nice to see it was trialled in an away game like this. And we can also talk about solutions. And one of the other solutions that you'll see that Mikel Arteta likes to do when we're sort of faced with a man-to-man is Bukayo Saka and his movement over here. Because ultimately, he'll just allow or cause the third centre half who would mark him, because the wing backs, as Juresek is here on Timber, and I think that is Sedidla, goes on to Nkapie. The wide centre back will follow Saka in, and then it's up to your Waneris and Timbers to recognise this space in the back post is available for me. And there is going to be a chance, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes, where Saka does come over to that side, and often the centre back won't follow you in. You have to make the defender think of what to do. And that was really impressive. And Saliba going into midfield makes the sort of centre forward that's marking his space and marking that area where Saliba has the ball make a decision to follow him in. Then you're asking Marino, when he comes in, centre half, are you going to follow Marino in? And this is how you combat a team which likes to go man to man. You have these questions, you pose these questions. If I make a certain movement, are you going to follow me in? Are you going to stay in your space? Either way, if you stay in your space, I'm free. If you follow me in, your Norgards, your Waneris, your Timbers will be the guys available. And that is really, really impressive. I also think sort of Nkapie, when he did receive the ball here, he would sort of play these balls into these channels really, really nicely when Saka would make a run, or even Declan Rice coming from deep, escaping his marker. There was solutions, and I really did enjoy it from an Arsenal point of view. But now let's get to the real examples. So here is William Saliba coming into midfield. And like I said, it made the centre forwards in the press make a decision whether to follow him in. And in this instance, the centre forward doesn't follow him in. And in actual fact, it's one of the wing backs from the other side of the pitch who decides to come into this space where William Saliba is. And that is what exactly I was saying. When that fullback or wing back makes the decision to go from his space where he was initially marking Jurian Timber, it means that there's going to be an option there for Timber to go into. And as you can see, just outside of the frame is Jurian Timber, who has a decision to make that movement into there. Because William Saliba makes that move into the pivot, the space opens up for Timber to go and attack into. Then you have a situation where you can go 2v1 versus the wide centre half, as Slavia go into that three at the back sort of formation. And that is what Mikel Arteta was trying to do. Make Slavia Prague have to make the decisions. And here we go. This is when Saliba actually receives the ball, and it forces players to come out of their natural man-to-man press or their original person that they were marking to follow Saliba. And if Saliba had a bit more confidence maybe to turn forward, or a bit more pace in terms of the speed at which he was thinking to release the ball, we would have been in business. I think he could have gone into there, into Norgard, then you've already beaten two people out of the press. But again, Mikel Arteta, being innovative, thinking of ways within a game scenario, where can we gain an advantage and make our opponents have to make a decision? And either way, and I think Slavia Prague did very well, every time, mostly, the decision would be, bang, let's go on to him. And if that's what I'm saying, if Saliba had a bit more confidence, probably gets away from a couple of the players that come towards him, because he is very, very press resistant. We know that. And of course, William Saliba does in the end play it back to Gabriel, and we are back to square one. But again, look at the way that can disrupt a man-to-man press by having someone come out of a settled shape and move into midfield, your centre half. John Stones did it. It's a libero role, and it's very, very good to see it being executed. Here again, a still image of William Saliba in midfield. And as you can see, the wing back has followed Jurian Timber. The centre forward here, the one that was marking William Saliba initially, decides, okay, I'll drop in with Saliba. And by dropping in with Saliba, like I was showing you on those images, it opens up that ball into Christian Norgard. So this is what's really, really exciting, is that Mikel Arteta can make a decision like that in a game. He did say in his press conference, it wasn't something that we talked about before the game, but it was a reactive thing in the game scenario, and it did work. It's just that I think Arsenal weren't too switched on when to release it into the middle. Now again, here is another example of William Saliba on the ball, and in this instance, obviously he's into the midfield area. The Slavia Prague players decide to drop off and not following in to the man-to-man, and obviously when you do that, it does mean that other avenues can open up. William Saliba can go wide, William Saliba can go here, and then it can go out to Nkapie, who was holding the whip really nicely in this game. I actually want to talk about him a bit in depth during the international break, because we've already learned a lot from him. Look, this was a stroke of genius whereby the intention, brilliant, execution, will need a bit of work. But you can already see why Mikel Arteta decided to do that. Now we can move on to the last segment and about Bukayo Saka, who I said made the decision to come across to this area of the pitch. And that's what you can do to disrupt, again, a man-to-man, because it gives a decision to the wing-back or the centre-half that was marking him to either follow him in or stay back. Either way, you stay back, Saka's free to make the run, or you follow him in, the space then appears where Saka was. And in this specific chance, Saka is released, and the wide centre-half does manage to get back in time. But, again, intention, brilliant, execution, bit of work, but this is what makes top managers top. They're able to find these solutions within a game scenario. But anyway, gunners, that's it for now. Hope you have enjoyed, and on to next time. Peace.